All right, in the name of God, let's talk about the second stage, which is all about reliance on God. You know the verse, Allah is sufficient for us, and He is the best disposer of affairs. Basically, it means God is enough for us. Now, in the first stage we discussed, the issue was our longing for eternity. We as humans naturally want to live forever, but we're mortal. To achieve that eternity, to make it real, God is enough. Because He Himself is eternal, He can grant eternal life. We talked about how He is the giver of life. The one who gives life is Himself alive, eternally. So, in response to that deep desire for eternity, the verse, God is enough for us, came to the rescue, so to speak. That was the first stage, the love of permanence. So for this second stage, what's the context? We know the life our Master lived. It was just one thing after another: prisons, exile, torture, poisonings, court trials. The enemies of religion were constantly pressuring him, causing him trouble. And it's at that point that he turns to this verse, God is enough for us. We'll read it now. So that's how we can see the difference between the first and second stages, the second stage of reliance. He says, in my utter helplessness, made worse by old age, being far from home, loneliness, and isolation, just as the people of this world came at me with all their schemes and their spies, I said in my heart, an entire army is attacking one weak, sick man whose hands are tied. In my utter helplessness, what's built into human nature? Helplessness. And this shows up in so many ways. In this context, think about it. Was there anything the Master could do against the oppression and pressure he faced? Could he push them back? They threw him in prison. He couldn't do a thing. They dragged him to court, and he was powerless, right? When he was in Barla, he'd want to go up the mountain for some fresh air, and a guard would tell him, stop, you can't go. And he'd just say, okay. He couldn't assert any physical force. He just did whatever they told him to. It was complete helplessness. And on top of that helplessness, he mentions old age, being far from home, loneliness, and isolation. These things just compound the feeling. In old age, what happens? Your physical strength fades, right? You become weaker. That's another form of helplessness. And being an exile, far from home, that's another kind of helplessness. When you're in your hometown, you have relatives, people you know, a community. But in exile, you're on your own, utterly alone. He had no one. His family wasn't there. His friends and companions weren't allowed near him. No one coming, no one going. Complete isolation, even in prison, which is isolation by definition. When he was out, they'd post police at his door and on his street, so no one could visit. He was completely cut off. It was in that state that the people of this world came at me with all their schemes and their spies. And they used all kinds of tricks. A disease is a scheme, a deception. Just like Satan whispers and deceives people, these people were trying to deceive those around the Master. They'd tell one person, he's a Kurd? You're Turks. Why are you following a Kurd? Trying to use racism to drive them away. To another they'd say, if you follow him, you'll end up in prison, trying to scare them off. They used all these deceptions to turn people against him, and their spies. Well, what does a spy do? They infiltrate, find out what's going on, and try to find something to use against you. So, in that moment, he thought to himself, an entire army is attacking one weak, sick man whose hands are tied. When we look back now, we wonder, how did he endure so much pain and suffering? How did he not break? This is where we'll find the answer. He's facing all these attacks, and he's powerless to stop them. not just the atheists in Turkey, but he was dealing with godlessness on a global scale. Because he was spreading the truths of faith, he was a threat to all of disbelief. So armies of them were coming after him. Think about us. Is anyone attacking us like that? Are they hounding our every step? No. Maybe they use little tricks to turn some of our friends away from us, and look how much that alone upsets us. We experience maybe 1/100th of what the Master went through, and we get shaken. But for him, it was all piled on top of each other. He was on trial for his life, facing execution. If we were facing the death penalty, what would happen to our minds? Forget execution. Even a 5 or 10-year court case would destroy our peace, right? He had this incredible spiritual strength. Where did it come from? So he thought, an entire army is attacking one weak, sick man whose hands are tied. For this poor soul, for me, is there no point of support? And with that question, he turned to the verse, God is enough for us, a point of support. In physics, it's a fulcrum, a point of leverage. In everyday life, if someone pushes you and there's nothing behind you, you fall. But if there's a huge boulder behind you, a solid wall, they can't move you. You have something to lean on. So people might ask, who's backing the newer students? What are they leaning on? They are leaning on God. That is their point of support. Why don't they crumble under all this pressure? What's behind them? The verse, God is enough for us, is behind them. If our Master hadn't lived such a difficult life, we wouldn't know if he truly applied this lesson to his own life. But the fact that he stood firm despite everything, that his spiritual strength never wavered, shows that he didn't just teach this as a lesson, he lived it. So he asked, is there no point of support for me? And he turned to the verse. And the verse told him, through your bond of faith, you can lean on a sovereign so all-powerful that, just think about it. Every spring, on the face of the earth, he equips the armies of plants and animals, made up of 400,000 different nations, with all their gear in perfect order. Imagine seeing a massive human army, tens of thousands of soldiers, and someone says, that one man over there feeds and clothes every single one of them. You'd be in awe of him, right? He would seem immense in your eyes. Well, God provides for an army of 400,000 nations on this earth, with countless individual members and endless types of equipment. When you think of that, your idea of God's majesty and grandeur should just explode, shouldn't it? So why don't we feel it more deeply? We've just gotten used to it. We see it happen, it comes and goes, and it's become routine. We believe God is doing it, but it needs to enter the realm of our feelings. The more it touches our feelings, the more of an effect it has. Not only that, but every year he freshens the uniforms of those two great armies of trees and birds, giving them new clothes, changing their outfits. Just as he renews the dresses and cloaks of the chickens and birds, he also changes the robe of the mountain and the veil of the desert. If you just say, spring came, the flowers bloomed, everything turned green, it sounds so ordinary. It has no connection to God. But the text says he changes the robe of the mountain and the veil of the desert. There is someone doing the changing, and he provides for the entire grand army of animals, with humanity at its head. Think about the food concentrates modern people have invented lately, like processed meat and sugar. What God provides is 100 times more perfect. He has packed every kind of food into what you could call divine concentrates, seeds and pits. Think about military rations, those cans of food for soldiers out on maneuvers, or the pills astronauts take in space to minimize waste. God has made similar concentrates. A tiny tomato seed, it's like a tiny speck. But what has God packed inside it? kilos and kilos of tomatoes. They only come out when you plant the seed in the soil, and God brings them forth fresh for you. He's packaged tons of produce inside that tiny thing, and from that produce come more seeds, and from those, even more. In a tiny fruit pit, He has stored an entire tree, and on that tree, tons of fruit. He packs these divine concentrates, and along with them, He includes a divinely written recipe for how they should be cooked and how they should grow. And for protection, He places them in tiny chests. Those tiny chests are the shells of the seeds, like an apricot pit. It's like a little wooden box. If the shell wasn't hard and durable, the delicate kernel inside would be crushed. God put something so precious inside a strong container to keep it safe. It's like how our brain is so delicate, so God put it inside the strong box of our skull. Without it, someone could just pass by, tap you on the head, and you'd be gone. And the creation of these little chests from His Be and It Is factory is so fast, so easy, and so abundant that the Quran says it is done with a single command. Which is more numerous, the fruits or the seeds? The seeds by far. You eat one orange and you get more than 10 seeds. In my region, one poppy capsule can have 10 or 20,000 seeds inside. God creates them in such vast numbers, so quickly and easily. He just says, be, and it is. Even though all those concentrates, all the seeds in the world, could probably fit in a single city, and they all look similar and are made of the same basic matter, the all-generous provider cooks from them, in a single summer season, such a variety of delicious foods that they could fill all the cities of the world. So he realized, through your bond of faith, you have found such a point of support. Imagine you have enemies. They've cornered you and are about to kill you. You'd look for someone to save you, right? Someone with power. In the same way, the master was being attacked from all sides, and he looked for a powerful, mighty being to rescue him. And through faith, he saw that the one who does all these incredible things we've just described exists. He saw a being with that kind of power. He thought, if that power were on my side, could it save me from them? Of course it could. If 20 thugs were attacking you, and you suddenly learned that the commander of the entire Turkish army was sending help, you'd have found your point of support, right? They wouldn't be your problem anymore. But you have to have that connection. You have to be part of His circle. Through faith, we enter God's circle. And when you have that bond, you can lean on limitless power and strength. He said, as I learned this lesson from the verse, I found such a spiritual strength. This spiritual strength is what we need most. Once you have that, God can grant you physical strength too. Look at the Master. He started his mission all alone. He faced execution, prison, torture, poison. Could they make him give up on his path, his cause? No. That only happens with spiritual strength. Without it, you'd crumble at the first sign of trouble. And where did he get this strength? From his faith. These reflections are so important. It's not enough to just say, yeah, we know God does all this. What's the result? Do you have that spiritual strength? If you do, great. If it's weak, it means that treasure of faith isn't fully working for you. As I learned this lesson from the verse, I found such a spiritual strength that it could make me challenge not just my current enemies, but the entire world. Feeling this power of faith, he says, I declared with my entire soul, God is sufficient for us, and He is the best disposer of affairs. Notice he says, with my entire soul. We often say it with our tongues, but there's a difference between saying it with your heart and saying it with your very soul. Then he continues, and because of my endless poverty and need, I turn to the same verse again for a point of seeking help. So now there are two things: a point of support, istinad, and a point of seeking help, istimdat. The point of support is for strength against your enemies. The point of seeking help is for getting your needs met. For our powerlessness, we look for power, that's support. For our poverty, we look for wealth, that's seeking help. And you find both through your bond of faith. So now he's looking at the same verse from the perspective of need. Because of my endless poverty and need, I turn to the same verse again. And it told me, through your identity as a servant and a possession, you belong to a master so generous and are registered in his book of sustenance that... Are we registered in his book of sustenance? Were you able to drink water today? Eat your meal? Who gave it to you? We are registered in God's provision ledger, and our sustenance is appointed for us from there. Do we see it that way? Or do we think, I worked by the sweat of my brow and earned my own bread? That's the wrong way to see it. You belong to a master so generous that every spring and summer he sets and adorns the banquet table of the earth 100 times over with different kinds of foods, bringing them forth from the unseen, out of nothing, from an unexpected place, from dry soil. Think about an orange tree. You have these bright orange fruits among green leaves. Where did they come from? Did we bring them from Africa and hang them there? Did they come from the moon? No, they came from the unseen. They didn't exist in the soil. They were created right there. It wasn't just a matter of rearranging existing materials. Their taste, their smell, their color, all of it was created. And he does this 100 times over, setting out these tables of food. This is the kind of Lord you have, a Lord who spreads and clears countless different banquets on the face of the earth. The years and the days of the year are like vessels for his gifts of mercy, showcases for his generosity. You are the servant of such an infinitely wealthy being. He is the all-rich, Ghani, and we are the utterly poor. He is the all-powerful. We are the utterly powerless. He is eternal. We are mortal. But our Lord is rich, and every spring he creates all this provision. This is the Lord you have. You are the servant of such an absolutely rich one. If you are conscious of your servanthood, your painful poverty becomes a delicious appetite. What does that mean, to be conscious of your servanthood? It means to be aware that you are needy and he is rich. You are powerless and he is powerful. If you're aware of this, if you realize that the Lord who nourished you when you were a drop of fluid in your mother's womb, who fed you with the most delicious food when you were a helpless infant, if you are conscious of that, then you know he will continue to meet all your needs. Your feeling of need is no longer painful because you have a delicious anticipation for the gifts your Lord will provide. He says, I took that lesson to heart, and along with my own soul, I said, yes, it is true. And with complete trust, I declared, God is sufficient for us, and he is the best disposer of affairs. With complete trust, mutevekilane. Trust doesn't mean doing nothing and saying God will provide. It means you do what you need to do, which is a form of prayer in action, and then you expect the results from God. You know they come from him, and you are grateful to him for them. So in the first stage, this verse rescued him in the matter of eternity. Yes, there is one who can give you the eternity you desire. Here, it gives him spiritual strength against his enemies and provides for his poverty. The application is different, but the source is the same. May God grant us this kind of spiritual strength as well.